Hello, everyone. I will be reading from the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. And it's up here on your screen. This is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Abinadab. Abinadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother was Bathsheba, the widow of Uriah.
And I'll be reading Joshua 2. Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp at Acacia Grove. He instructed them, "Scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho." So the 2 men set out and came to the house of the prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. But someone told the king of Jericho, "Some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land." So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, "Bring out the men who have come into your house, for they have come here to spy out the whole land." Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, "Yes, the men were here earlier, but I did not know where they were from. They left the town at dusk, as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went, but if you hurry, you can probably catch up with them." Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath bundles of flax she had laid out. So the king's men went looking for the spies along the road leading to the shallow crossings of the Jordan River. And soon as the king's men had left, the gate of Jericho was shut. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up on the roof to talk to them. "I know the Lord has given you this land," she told them. "We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror, for we have heard how the Lord made dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted with fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. Now swear to me by the Lord that you will be kind to me and my family since I have helped you. Give me some guarantee that when Jericho is conquered, you will let me live, along with my father and mother, my brothers and sisters and their families." "We offer our own lives as guarantee for your safety," the men agreed. "If you don't betray us, we will keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us this land." Then, since Rahab's house was built into the town wall, she let them down by a rope through the window. "Escape to the hill country," she told them. "Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. Then when they have returned, you can go on your way." Before they left, the men told her, "We will be bound by the oath we have taken only if you follow these instructions. When we come into the land, you must leave this scarlet rope hanging from the window through which you let us down. And all your family members, your father, mother, brothers, and all your relatives must be here inside the house. If they go out into the street and are killed, it will not be our fault. But if anyone lays a hand on the people inside this house, we will accept the responsibility for their death. If you betray us, however, we are not bound by this oath in any way. "I accept your terms," she replied, and she sent them on their way, leaving the scarlet rope hanging from the window. The spies went up into the hill country and stayed there 3 days. The men who were chasing them searched everywhere along the road, but they finally returned without success. Then the 2 spies came down from the hill country, crossed the Jordan River, and reported to Joshua all that had happened to them. "The Lord has given us the whole land," they said, "for all the people in the land are terrified of us."
Thank you, Barbara. You did that so well. And thank you, George, for getting through those names. And thank you, Patrice, for leading us in worship. I love beautiful packaging. I don't know about you, but when I see a beautifully wrapped package, it just warms my heart. You know, it just says that I care, you know, that I'm special, that someone took the time to just make these perfect corners and this beautiful ribbon, both thick and thin with the little curls. You know, it just says something, and it makes you happy, you know, when you see something so beautiful. It just makes you feel good on the inside. And you know, with the times being what they are, if you have time, and if I have time, I would do something like this. And it's probably been many years since I've done something like this, because I also have years where my gifts kind of look something more like this, where I found some leftover tissue paper that someone used in a present last year, and I just wrapped it and put some tape over it. But what I love about wrapping, Christmas wrapping, is that over the years I've learned a lot of really great stuff from Scott's side of the family. And one of the things I've learned is that Santa's wrapping is always different from the other wrapping for obvious reasons that I can't really get into right now with kids being here. The other thing that I really love is what I like to call the Christmas wrap fake out. The Christmas wrap fake out is when you have been waiting all year. You've been dropping hints, you've been talking to your grandparents, you've been talking to your aunts and uncles, you've been sending links to your parents, reminding them how good you've been this year, and you were asking for a pair of the newest Nike sneakers. And lo and behold, under the tree when you wake up on Christmas morning, there is a box, beautifully wrapped and in the shape of a sneaker box, right?
Yes.
And you think, this is it. This has got to be it. And you rip open the packaging and you open it. I mean, I'm not ripping, but you rip it open and you find a pair of socks. They're not even new. And you thought, oh no, I must have been way worse than I thought. But then your mom says, wait, you know, there's another package. It's way in the back behind the tree. And she hands it to you. And you're like, what? It's not even my name, Mom. And it's written in Sharpie marker. Like, what is this? You're like, okay, well, I'll just give it a shot. And lo and behold, the brand new sneakers that you've been waiting for all year. And that, my friends, is the Christmas wrap fake out. And it says, you know what? It's just going to mess with your mind because you always thought, nice wrapping, nice gift. But the Christmas wrap fake out says, no. You don't know what it's like. You don't know until you open it, because it could be something nice on the inside, but it might not be. Now, you're fully warned for the next time you go to a White Elephant gift exchange, okay? Now, if we want to go to, Brandon, if you would go to the slide, you might remember that we are in our very little mini series, have been looking at the birth of Jesus and the Christmas, the family tree of Jesus. And that in the book of Matthew, in the first chapter, Matthew is focusing on, in the yellow, David and Abraham, and connecting them to Jesus. And you might recall that God, when he introduces himself to Abraham, he says that I am going to make you, your descendants, as many as the stars in the sky, and I'm going to bless you and make you into a great nation, and I'm going to use your nation to bless all other nations. And as Matthew connects Abraham to Jesus, he is saying, Jesus is the one who is come from that line and is going to bless all nations. And as Matthew connects Jesus to David, we remember that God had made a covenant with David saying that from this royal line will come a king that will rule with wisdom and justice and righteousness and peace. And as Matthew connects the two, he's saying that Jesus is this king who is coming from the line of David and is introducing us to the first in this time. And we also might remember that Matthew breaks tradition, that normally in a family lineage that you would only mention men. But in the purple, we notice that he has brought in 5 women's names: Tamar and Rahab and Ruth and Bathsheba and then Mary. And last time we talked about Tamar, and we learned that Tamar was brought into the picture to show her influence on Judah, that she pointed out to him what the right thing was that he didn't do, and that he even turns and says to her, "You are more righteous than I am." And so today we look at the second name, the second woman's name, who is Rahab. And the story of Rahab begins in this text in chapter 2, where the people of God are on the east side of the Jordan, and they are going to make their way over to the west side of the Jordan, to the promised land. And the first city that they would encounter is the city of Jericho. Now Joshua decides to send out 2 spies to go check out the land and to go check out Jericho. And immediately, when the people hear this instruction, they are going to think about something that their grandparents told them when they were little kids, because it was something that happened a whole generation prior to them. And that was recorded in Numbers 13, that Moses had actually sent out one person from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, along with Joshua, his right-hand man, to go scout out the promised land. And so these 12 representatives from each tribe and Joshua go over to the promised land, and they're supposed to just kind of check things out, the land and the people and everything like that. And they go and they find this amazing fruit, and they find that the people are really big and strong. And they come back to Moses and they say, "Oh yeah, this is a land flowing with milk and honey, like California, where the fruit is really nice and succulent. But listen, let me tell you, the people are big and they're strong. There are giants in this land, and the cities are fortified and they're strong. And Moses, I know that God said this is our promised land, but I'm not sure that we should go there." Okay? And so the people, or the 12, actually 11 of them, tell Moses, no, I don't think we should go. But there is one of the tribes, or one man named Caleb, who's actually in the tribe of Judah, along with Joshua. The 2 of them are the only ones who say, no, we should go ahead. And so they demonstrate their faith in belief in what God has said about this promised land. But because of the others, God says to this generation, you're not going into this promised land. Okay? And so as the people are thinking about 2 spies going into this land, they're reminded of the disobedience of their forefathers, and that, okay, here we are again, we're about to go and do the same thing. Now, prior to Moses' death, he did tell Joshua that you are going to be the one who leads these people into the promised land that God has given. And in Joshua chapter 1, God actually speaks to Joshua, and he renews the promise that he has given to Moses, saying, I'm going to give you this land, and I'm going to be with you. Like the entire time, I'm not going to leave you. And God also tells Joshua, be strong and courageous. I'm going to be with you wherever you go, right? That's the verse that everybody remembers, be strong and courageous. But I really want to point out something important here, and that is that God also says to Joshua that you must study my word day and night. You are to meditate on it, and you are to obey its instructions. And if you do that, then things will go well for you. And so Joshua takes up this mantle from Moses, and he gets his people together, and he says, in 3 days, we're going to be ready. We are going to go into this land, so get ready. And that is when he sends out the spies. Now, these spies, they go out, they're supposed to check out the land and check out Jericho, and we learn in chapter 2, they end up at a prostitute's house, Rahab's house. Now, I don't really know why it is they end up there. There's a lot of speculation, but we really don't know. And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, because her house is situated between the inner and outer walls of the city. So there could be some strategy involved with why they ended up there. But I'll tell you what, it's certainly not a place that I would want to get caught that I had to explain to my commanding officer, right? And also, I don't know a whole lot about being a spy. I mean, we'd have to ask about that. But I just figure that Spy 101 is that you don't get caught, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the point? But we find out that these spies, they not only decide they're going to spend the night over at a prostitute's house, but they get caught doing it. And it's not just like the farmer or the shopkeeper that finds out. No. The king of Jericho finds out that these spies are in his country, in his land, right? And so the king sends orders back to Rahab through some messengers, ordering her to bring these men out. And we find that in verse 4, that Rahab had hidden the 2 men. And she replied, yes, well, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. And they left town at dusk, and right before the gates were about to close. And I don't know where they went, but maybe if you hurry up, you'll catch them, Okay, so she closes the door. The king's men leave to go try to find the spies. Now, like I said, the spies come to Rahab's house at night. We're not really sure what happened, but she does at some point realize that these spies are from another country. They have come to her land, and she decides not to throw them out, not to rat them out, but she decides to hide them. And she decides that after they've arrived, but before the messengers have come, right? And so I'll just note here that the messengers, when they come, they kind of poke fun at her about what she does for a living, but it doesn't appear, to me at least, that anything unsavory has happened, okay? And I'll also note that the way the original text is written, the author is not critical about what Rahab does for a living. And perhaps it is because the author understands that women who do what Rahab does don't do it because they want to. They do it because they don't have any choice. And so we learn that she probably tries to hide them after they arrive, before the king's men come, and she hides them up on her roof, which would be flat, underneath stalks of flax. And she puts herself at great risk to hide them and ensures their safety and sends the messengers off in a completely different direction. Now, after they leave, she sneaks back up onto the roof, and as a Canaanite prostitute woman, she makes an astonishing statement of faith to these Israelite men. She says, and I think it's verse 9, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you." In fact, we've heard that your God brought people out of Egypt, brought your slaves out of Egypt and opened up the Red Sea, and they crossed through dry land. And then we also heard that your God demolished the people, the Amorites, over on the east side of the Jordan. And when we heard about all these things, she repeats again, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Rahab says, everyone here is terrified of you. We heard about your God. We know that your God is capable of doing these amazing miracles. And I suspect that Rahab has already made these decisions about faith before she makes this statement to them. Probably even before those messengers arrived, maybe even before the spies arrived, that she has contemplated this. And so she comes and makes the statement to them that, hey, your God, the God of heaven and earth, your God is the real God. She understands that this king of Jericho that has sent messengers to come and get her or to come and make her send them out, that he ultimately can't really do anything to her. She understands that it is God, God of heaven and earth, that she must pay great respect to. And so she says to them in verse 12, "Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death." Again, this is another statement of faith. She's saying, not only do I believe that your God is the true God, but I'm actually going to trust my family to your God. And that's the first thing she asks. And isn't that a portrayal of her character, right? That she says, I am going to trust my family to you first and foremost. I'm not actually worried about myself right now. And the men said, "Our lives for your lives." The men assured her, "If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land." And so because Rahab hid and saved these men from death, they promised to spare Rahab's family from death. And they agree the sign is going to be, she's going to tie a scarlet cord in the window, and so when the troops return, they'll see the scarlet cord and they'll know that this is Rahab's family and not to touch them, to leave them be. And she makes a way for them to escape out of her window, and they make their way back over to the east side of the Jordan. Now, this is the really cool part, okay? Because this Canaanite prostitute woman is the one that had faith in the God of heaven and earth. She is the one that actually tells the spies, you don't need to worry. Our people are in fear because your God is the real God. And the spies, they go back to Joshua and they tell him, we don't need to fear because they're all afraid of us. They believe that our God is the one who is the true God. Now the spies haven't looked at any land, right? They ended up at Rahab's house and they were there all night and then went home. They haven't surveyed anything. So the statement of faith that they give to Joshua is the one that Rahab gave to them. That she was the one who gave them courage, and in turn, they gave courage to Joshua. And then we find out later in the book of Joshua that the people go by faith. And they go and they take this land, and out of everybody in the whole city of Jericho, it is actually Rahab's family is the only family that was spared. So why is Rahab in Jesus' family tree? Rahab, I believe, points to Jesus because Jesus taught that in his kingdom, it wasn't about being the best or the brightest or the richest. That he's not looking at our wrapping paper or wrapping, the illusions that we want to give people, or the reality that we can't cover up. And in the long list of people of faith in Hebrews 11, Rahab is mentioned in verse 31. I think we have that. It was by faith that Rahab the prostitute was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. And also in the book of James, he mentions Rahab along with Abraham, by the way, as an example of faith that leads to good works. He says in chapter 2, verse 25, Rahab the prostitute is another example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away by a different road. Just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. So why is Rahab in Jesus' family tree? Because Rahab points to Jesus, and though she is a prostitute foreign woman on the outside, she has remarkable faith on the inside. And Jesus values our faith. In fact, later in Matthew, Jesus talks about, or we learn that a Roman officer, someone with tremendous power and authority, who had definitely very nice wrapping. He came to Jesus and pleaded for Jesus to heal his servant. And he even says to Jesus, I am not worthy of you coming into my home. Just say that she is healed and it will happen. And Jesus said about this Roman officer, he says, I tell you the truth, I have not seen faith like this in all of Israel. In all of Israel. And so even though this man, he had prestige, he had power, he could tell this person go and they would go, and he would tell this person come and they would come. Everyone listened to him, and yet he was powerless. And he came to Jesus, and Jesus honored his faith. It wasn't what was on the outside. It was the faith that Jesus saw on the inside. And that's just one example of a whole slew of them in the book of Matthew, where Jesus honored people for their faith. That he didn't care what they looked like on the outside, if they were poor or a widow or a foreigner, that he actually looked through all of that into the faith that they had on the inside. And so, we can spend all of our energy on our wrapping, working on our image, improving our standing, gaining more influence. And the wrapping is not just the things we want to improve. No, our wrapping is stuff that you can't control either. I'm too female. I'm too dark. I'm not attractive. I'm disabled. I'm not talented enough. The wrapping is the gossip and the slander that you can't untangle yourself from. But you see, my friends, none of that matters. God's not looking at any of that. God responds to our faith that is on the inside. He rewards us for our faith that is on the inside. He sees our faith through all of that junk. He looks at the faith that is within us, in each one of us. So it doesn't matter that even if you have the tiniest faith, like a mustard seed, or even if you had faith but you've lost it and you're starting all over again, even if it grows and it swells and it diminishes with time, it doesn't matter how old or young you are, what you have going on, how good you are on the outside. You only have to have a little bit of faith, and God can use that. And thank God that He doesn't look at our wrapping, that He's looking at our faith. And that you only have to have a little bit of it, and God can grow that if we allow Him to. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is our faith looking like? What's the state of our faith? Whether it's small or large or medium, is it growing? Is our faith growing? With each passing year, do we see our faith growing? Has it become stagnant? Have we been following Jesus so long that we're just kind of riding it out? No matter how young or old we are called by God to continue growing in our faith. And we remember the instruction to Joshua to study God's teaching day and night, to meditate on our scriptures, to obey its instructions. I mean, what if tonight we all just decided that we were going to start meditating on God's scripture every day, maybe just for 5 to 10 minutes a day, just meditating? What would that do to our faith? How would it grow it? How would it lead us towards obedience? And you see, the more that we grow our faith, the better that we'll actually see it in other people. The more we'll value the faith in others and in ourselves, the less that we'll look at the wrapping, the exterior. The less we'll care about what somebody said about that person or what we heard about that person. But we might actually think, well, what does God say about the faith that's within that person? Perhaps we'll be able to surrender some of our own shame, our own tragedies. And we can think more clearly about the state of our own faith. And like I said, I do think that when we try to see the way God is seeing, that we'll experience freedom, that Jesus sees past all of us wrapping paper. He sees past all of it, and He's looking at our faith. And I surely thank God for that. Would you pray with me? Lord, I pray that we would become people who are less concerned with our image, less concerned about what people are saying about us, less concerned about what we have and what we appear to be on the outside. But let us be more concerned about our faith in You, Lord Jesus. That we would honor You with our faith, that we would grow in our faith, that You would see in us people who trust in You deeply, that we would take courage in action through our faith, and we would give it to others when they need it most. That you would value the faith in us, that we would value the faith in other people, that we would come to understand that we only need to have a little, and though we might be stagnant, it's not too late. That we want to grow in our faith, God, because we want to see you do miracles in us and miracles in other people. And we trust and we believe that you are who you say you are, that you are the God of heaven and earth. And your promises are true, that you will never leave us or forsake us, and that our devotion to you is never lost. That we will be rewarded for our faith in you. God, make us into a people who have great faith, that it might bring you glory. In Jesus' name, amen.